that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell, the famous Tom Fennell, philanthropist, man about town, and
world traveler.
World traveler, town meeting rep. I'm on the energy committee for Brattleboro now, by the way.
Good.
I just found out this morning.
I think they just made the appointments.
Yeah, they did. Okay. Every day I get up early in the morning and I look through the news and find 10 or 15 news items out of usually between 250 and 350 that I look at. Most of them I just look at the title. And I post those on my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com. And Tom and I talk about the ones we like the best. So we are starting with Tuesday, July 2nd, today being the 9th, so this is a week ago, and we'll just start right in.
Well, I'll just tell them that we're in a different venue today.
Oh, a different venue, yes, we are.
We're in a Cosman room because they need the studio for a summer camp. Right?
Summer camp, yeah, the kids learn how to use video equipment. I think that's very cool. Yeah. It really is. And of course they can continue to use them when they get into the high school and do the things that the kids do there. It's
so I'm
really
not
good.
Doing what I usually do, which is switching between cameras and all of that. Yeah, so if you see me twiddling my thumbs here for a while, please excuse me.
We're going to have fun today. Okay, we're going to start out with a piece from Buildings, which says researchers from the University of Cambridge have developed a coating that can be applied to turbine blades to reduce the amount of sound they make. The material, which is made of 3D printed plastic, can reduce the noise generated by a blade by up to 10 decibels without affecting aerodynamic performance.
Well, 10 decibels means it's half as loud.
Yeah. It's
That's significant.
It's a significant reduction in sound, yeah.
What got me out of this article was great. I'll read just one sentence. Taking inspiration from the intricate design of owl wings.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That allow the birds to hunt silently. So they're copying nature. This is great.
Yeah, it is.
Moving right along.
Our next item comes from Renews. Dong Energy's 210 megawatt westernmost rough offshore wind plant was officially inaugurated off the east coast of England. I think they got it lost somehow. It's the westernmost rough, and it's on the east coast.
Well, I got I got a picture of the turbines.
Yeah, these turbines. This was the first one to use the Siemens 6 megawatt turbines on a large scale project. Each turbine has an integrated helicopter hoisting platform in the rear.
That's visible in the.
You can see it right there.
We'll look at another one where we got a little close-up of it. I was wondering what the heck that was, you know? But it's a helicopter landing.
The helicopter doesn't actually land on it, I don't think. I think the helicopter
just hovers and some guy climbs down.
Person get down. And of course the turbine isn't turning when that happens.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of the map where this is occurring, and it's Yorkshire.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things happening in Yorkshire that we'll talk about today.
On Ilkley Morbatot.
Huh?
On Ilkley Morbatot. That's what they say in Yorkshire.
Oh, say that again.
It's a famous song. On Ilkley Morbatot. Thou's been a courtin' Mary Jane. On Ilkley Morbatot. Ilkley is a town. Ilkley Moor is the moor around the town, and Batot means butt hat, and the implication is you've been doing this without your hat. And the song has the person courting Mary Jane without a hat, and then catching cold, and then dying, and then getting buried, and then the worms come and eat him up, and the ducks come and eat the worms, and then the people eat the ducks, and they've all eaten him, because you are what you eat. You're not allowed to sing the song unless you're drunk. At least that's what I've been told. Okay.
Well, let's look.
You wanted to show another thing. Oh, you didn't. It's coming up.
Well, yeah. I'm moving off to Germany
Moving off to the next piece from The Guardian. Germany has agreed to mothball about 5 of the country's large brown coal plants to meet its climate goals by 2020, retaining them as capacity reserve system for power outages. The decision means Germany could meet its goal of reducing CO2 emissions by 40% by 2020 compared to 1990.
Well, brown coal, we call it lignite.
Yeah.
I don't think it's used much for anything in this country.
No, it's not. It was banned.
It's like one step above peat.
Yeah, it was banned in much of the country.
It's on its way to becoming coal.
It's on its way to becoming coal. It was banned in much of this country a long, long time ago. I remember when...
It's very dirty.
It's very dirty. And it was one of the reasons... Well, no, it wasn't even lignite. It was anthracite was one of the reasons why... Not anthracite. Bituminous coal was one of the reasons why Pittsburgh was so dirty.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid. Yeah. Pittsburgh was horrible. You couldn't go through Pittsburgh without turning black. Or at least close to.
An impression that you get from that picture.
Yeah.
It looks like pollution.
That's steam.
And it's not, it's steam. It's cooling steam.
Yeah,
that
is steam.
But it's very telling. Because what you're not seeing there, the guy with the bicycle standing in the way is this huge stack. And that's where the pollution is.
Yeah. Very tall stacks. The idea of those tall stacks is put the pollution as high as possible.
So we don't have to deal with it.
That's right.
Somebody else deals with it.
That's right. Okay.
Well, let's move along. Here's that helicopter platform, or whatever it is.
Friday, July 3rd, from Renew's Dong has selected Siemens to supply 7 megawatt turbines. These are bigger than the last ones. For the 1.2 gigawatt Hornsea 1 offshore wind farm in England. The company will use up to 171 of the next generation turbines at what will be the world's largest wind farm. The contract is not yet signed and work may begin in 2017 for completion in 2018.
Now this is just adjacent to the farm we just saw.
Yeah. And there you see that helicopter area in the back of the turbine there. And that fence around there is so people don't fall off.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
I noticed one thing when I saw the first picture is that the turbines seem to be tilted.
Yes.
And now I look at this up close and look at that platform. The turbines are tilted. They're tilted up slightly. The platform is designed to be flat.
Yeah.
If you take a look at it, you know, it's elevated at the back, so the turbine's tilted. I don't know why.
I can't answer that question.
Moving along.
But you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody saw a reason to do it.
There's a picture of where it's located, and it's almost the same spot as the other one.
Okay. So, from C News Renewables, we got this information from Costa Rica produced 98.55% of its electricity through renewable energy sources in the first half of 2015, according to data from the state-run utility, which has a name I will not try to pronounce because I don't pronounce Spanish well.
Costa Ricense. De Electricidad.
Instituto Costarricensis de Electricidad. I don't know. Maybe I got it.
You're pretty close. Pretty close. Spanish is relatively easy to pronounce.
It's pretty easy to pronounce, but I never studied Spanish after 3rd grade. The mix includes hydro, geothermal, wind, biomass, and solar power. The goal for thermal generation for the year is 2.9%.
It doesn't even mention hydro, so they mustn't have any.
They must have a lot of hydro. They have a lot of hydro.
Don't even mention. They must have a lot of geothermal.
Well, they have a lot of geothermal. No, it does say hydro, Tom. First thing there.
The first thing.
Yeah.
Duh.
Okay. Moving right along, Echo Watch tells us this. Coal is no longer king in America. That's the latest finding from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which provides independent statistics and analysis of the energy sector. Coal lost its #1 spot as the nation's top electricity source for the first time on record this April, when it produced less than natural gas.
It's kind of a neat picture there because it tells a good story. I mean, here's this guy dressed in hazard gear.
Yep.
And he's pulling a veil away, and behind it is all these turbines.
Yeah, except it's natural gas that replaced it. But, yeah, okay.
Well, there's more on this one. I got a couple of graphs there. The map shows where we're building all sorts of different power plants in there by type of power plant, different colors, and the Midwest is dotted with wind, as you might expect.
As you might expect, yeah.
But one thing that you can't see it very well on the map there, but North Carolina is loaded with solar.
Yeah.
We've never talked about that. It's
we
never
should
come
have
up.
actually, because North Carolina has been doing a lot with solar power. And
well, as evidenced by this map, there's these orange dots all over the state.
And Georgia is starting to do solar under the influence of the Atlanta Tea Party.
Yeah, it's funny. There's only one dot showing solar in Georgia, and it's the other end of the state from Atlanta. But
that's okay.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, though.
Yeah.
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 Well, let's move along. Here's a nice picture of our glorious leader.
Utility Dive tells us the White House has categorically rejected biomass fuels as carbon neutral, saying the idea flies in the face of sound science. The administration issued a policy statement declaring its strong opposition to a House measure it believes would undermine President Obama's ability to put environmental reforms in place.
Well, what they're basically saying is when you burn trees, and this is about wood burning biomass, when you burn trees, it takes a lifetime for the tree to regenerate itself, so we're not going to count it.
Yes.
But it's still, over its lifetime, sucking up an awful lot of CO2.
Right.
So over the long run, it is carbon neutral.
Sort of. I mean, you've got to use a lot of fuel to harvest the trees.
Well,
and so forth.
yeah, that's also true. And you have to manage the forest right.
Right.
And
you do.
Our Burlington Electric has a forester on staff.
Yep.
And he monitors the suppliers very carefully.
Yes.
But not everybody will be doing that.
Not everybody. Although one of the problems that we've got now is that the Europeans are going so heavily to biomass that basically they're importing huge quantities of wood pellets from the United States. Mm-hmm. And those wood pellets are not necessarily being sustainably harvested. So
I'm sure they're not.
That's a problem. And you know, it's crazy when you think of the amount of carbon emissions and other pollution that comes from ocean traffic, because the ships are basically unregulated in a lot of places. So,
you know, quite a while ago I saw a picture of it was artist rendition, it wasn't a real ship, but of a modern whim ship.
Yes.
And why not? I mean, they got vast oceans to travel.
We had one on the show. It was a picture that showed.
That might have been what I was just looking at.
Wind and with hard wind surfaces with solar panels on them.
That wasn't the one I was just looking at.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Yeah, I do remember talking to you about that.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
There's plenty to go that route.
There's a lot you can do. Okay. Our next item is from Saturday, July 4th.
Solar Impulse.
BBC News. Solar Impulse, powered only by the sun, has landed in Hawaii after making a historic 7,200 kilometer flight across the Pacific from Japan. The distance covered and the time spent in the air, 118 hours, are records for manned solar-powered flight. The duration was also an absolute record for a solo unfueled journey. I'm sorry, I don't believe that last statement, because you consider people who have gone across the Atlantic Ocean on a kayak or whatever it is they've done. They're out there for weeks. But I think if you're talking about an unfueled air journey, piloted air journey, I don't know.
This last trip took them almost a week.
Yeah, yeah, and the guy who was the pilot, whose name I've forgotten, and I probably
I got a picture of him.
Okay,
he said
he was not allowed to sleep for more than 20 minutes at a time during that entire journey.
There's actually two pilots, only one in the plane at any one time, and they spell each other.
Yep.
Bertrand Piccard, I think he's the boss man.
I think so.
And Andre Bushberg.
Okay.
I got some nice pictures of it. I'm going to run through them real quickly.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a nice picture.
They're just landing in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And here's the two guys, and there's a picture of the plane up in the air.
With its landing lights. It's got like 16 landing lights or something. A lot of landing lights.
It looks like some kind of lights, yeah.
Yeah, they're LEDs.
I hope they're LEDs. Yeah. Here's the plane from the side at night. A couple of bicyclists accompanying them. Funny, they're not. It must be going fast enough. They're not holding up the wings.
Yeah.
And there it is. It just landed.
Yep.
I don't know if there's anything more to talk about here.
But it's interesting to see that that plane was able to do that without using any fuel, no tow, nothing.
No, did it on its own.
Did it on its own, took off on its own, landed on its own.
Now the article, I know it said something that just escaped me, but this is not the type of plane of the future.
No.
This is basically a science project.
Yes, it is. Which
but it's a good one.
Cost a lot of money, by the way, $100 million for an airplane.
I could have used that.
Yeah, well, it's only a tenth of the price of a B-1 bomber, but let's go on. Next item, The Guardian. Governments must rethink plans for new coal-powered plants around the world, which are now the most urgent threat to the future of the planet. The head of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development warns. The warning from a, quote, club of the world's richest countries, unquote, is strongly worded.
Here's another. These are Yorkshire's coming up again. These are all in Yorkshire.
Okay, so
and you can see the steam rising, which looks like pollution. But if you look carefully, you also see the stacks, and that's the pollution.
The stacks are right here.
Yep. Well, they're all over the place.
They're all over the place. Yeah.
Because it's three different power plants.
They just put out enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and other pollutants, including things like mercury, which gets into our lakes and rivers and doesn't come out again and poisons future generations.
Well, it's also interesting because this is happening now, not so much because of green thinking, but because of pure economics.
Oh yeah.
They're not making sense anymore.
The coal, yeah, they're not making sense. It's a combination actually. The pollution from coal is so heavy that somebody has to do something about it. You can see that in India and China. Doing something about it is so expensive that other ways of doing power are cheaper. So coal's really kind of.
Yeah, some of the smog in China is incredible.
Yeah, and in India it's worse. The worst place in the United States is New Delhi. In the world, United States. Yeah, New Delhi, Pennsylvania. Okay. Geographical had this on Sunday, July 5th. The world's longest underwater electricity cable will soon enable sharing of renewable energy between the United Kingdom and Norway.
Nice picture up here.
Starting in 2021, power will be able to move as needed, balancing the grid loads thanks to a 453-mile-long underwater cable between Blythe, I can't pronounce English.
I figured.
Northumberland. And Kvildal in Norway. So
here's a picture of where it goes.
Oh my gosh.
It's almost 500 miles.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was in the cable business, as you know, and when I was in it, we were bidding on what was then a very large underwater cable. It was from Connecticut to Long Island.
Connecticut to Long Island.
And now they're going 500 miles.
Yep. How far is Connecticut to Long Island?
It ain't 500 miles. More than 5. But,
it's more than 5 miles. I think it's probably more than 10 miles, but nevertheless, it's 500 miles is pretty long. And you know, in Iceland, they're talking about connecting Iceland with Scotland.
Yeah, they probably will. Well, once they get these things, I mean, they're not making this cable in one length.
Yes.
There wouldn't be a ship big enough to
carry that much cable.
But I saw on one of these articles the reels that they put them on.
Oh.
They build these large aluminum reels that are designed to be sitting on the deck of a ship. And then they'll splice them on a ship and it'll continue on. So by the time they are finished, it's all one continuous length.
Right. And you can, as you said, you can't do it with one ship. So they're going to be passing the cable at some point from one ship to another.
Very likely,
to continue.
Yeah.
All very carefully figured out.
There'll probably be one ship that all of the work is being done on, and they'll probably bring up the other cables on another ship or on a barge or something.
That would make sense.
Good picture here of some of the cables in Europe. I mean, they're not. It's about this particular one, but over to the right you can see cables going from Norway to Denmark. And you can also see some of the locations of wind farms.
And they're planning on doing one from Norway to the Netherlands, I believe, or Belgium. Belgium, it must be. People in the Netherlands aren't doing very much with renewable power.
It all makes sense now that we got the technology.
Right. Okay, from College Times, and I don't know why I took this from them, because it's about the London Array.
United Arab Emirates.
Yes.
College, well, the reason why they mention it is an Emirati company is heavily involved in this.
Okay, yes. The London Array, the world's largest offshore wind farm, had its second anniversary of operation. The 630 megawatt wind project has produced more than 5 terawatt hours of affordable renewable electricity, while mitigating more than 2 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. It powers about 2% of all of the homes in the UK.
Well, this one is in place and operating now.
In place and operating.
And apparently they call it the London Array because it's near London.
Yeah.
It's down in the Thames Estuary, right off the Thames Estuary. Right. And that is a picture of this very field.
Yep. 630 megawatts is about the capacity, the nameplate capacity. It's a little more than the nameplate capacity of Vermont Yankee. And in that time it produced about, I'm going to guess that's about 55% of what Vermont Yankee would have done.
Probably.
But that's a very high number when you consider all things.
And they mention this thing is spread across 1,000 square kilometers, which is 40 square miles.
400 square miles.
I got 40.
Well,
no, it's 100 square kilometers.
Okay.
Okay, now we're back.
To
and that's equal to
miles.
10,000 soccer fields.
Okay.
Soccer pitches, they call them.
Right. Okay.
175 wind turbines, and as you
How
mentioned,
many square miles? 400?
40 square miles.
40 square miles. Which
10,000 soccer fields. I guess that's end to end.
Yeah. That's a lot of area, but you know those wind turbines are high enough off the water that most boats can just pass under them.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know what the rules are about running boats under them, but
well, that has to be a heavy commercially traveled sea route because it's the entrance to London.
Yes, but they would have specific channels going by.
It's the only one we're going to be talking about today in London. It's not in what was the name of it? Yorkshire.
Yorkshire?
Yeah, this one's in Kent.
This is not in Oakley Moorabaughtot. I used to live in Kent.
Did you?
Yes, very briefly. I lived in Kent. I lived in Canterbury, which is southeast of London. I also lived in Devon. Okay, Monday, July 6th. The National Trust is to invest £30 million in solar panels, wood chip boilers, and innovative technology that can extract heat from a lake in a bid to supply half the energy needs of renewable sources by 2020. The
investment is a nice little summer home.
Yeah, is an 8-fold increase on what the Trust has made in 5 pilot projects. The National Trust in the UK is kind of, sort of equivalent to the National Park System in the United States.
Well, sort of, but it's got a big historical preservation component.
And
they buy and operate places like this.
This picture, these little shrubs that you see here, those are 6 feet tall. This building is 103 feet from the ground to the top of the dome, and from end to end is 680 feet. So it's as longer than 2 football fields with their end zones. Right here, you see some sort of structure, but next to it, that's a truck.
That's a truck.
And these things down here are people.
Huh? Oh, they're people.
They're people. And
okay.
I know that building pretty well. I've been there. My daughter has actually stayed there for the night. That was built by a man named Frederick Augustus Harvey.
Oh, okay.
And he was my great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Oh, darn. Yeah. So you get a connection to that
I
building.
have a connection, although they don't know it because my branch of the family is kind of... My great-great-grandfather was offered $50,000 to change his name.
Obviously, he didn't take it.
No, he didn't. But his son moved. He went to Canada. They shipped him to Canada. His son was moved to the United States, his grandson moved to the United States, and they changed the spelling of the name from H-E-R-V-E-Y, like Hervey Scudder.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's Harvey, and
that's how they pronounce it.
And Americans and Canadians were likely to call it wrong, but Americans always did. So they changed the spelling. But he was the guy who built that was the 4th Earl of Bristol.
I got some other pictures from here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is a splitting shed. You can see the guy right here splitting wood.
He's cutting wood for the biomass boiler. And that's what it says here. That's just what he's doing.
All that wood's gonna go over to Hickworth House.
No, it's a different location.
I know it is.
And this other one is a turbine. I think we talked about this one. This one's in Wales. Snowdonia.
Snowdonia, okay. Everybody in Wales loves Snowdonia. Okay.
I got to mention this National Trust.
Yeah.
They own John Lennon's house.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, it's part of the National Trust.
Okay. We should stay on energy instead of old family history. The part of the family that I really like is on my mother's side.
Aha.
And they were Welsh.
Okay.
So, okay. From Clean Technica, 20 subnational governments with over 220 million people and $8.3 trillion in GDP have now committed to targeted reductions in carbon emissions through the Compact of States and Regions, a partnership of the Climate Group, CDP, R20, and NRG4SD, supported by the United Nations and others. And this is kind of important, particularly when you look at Canada, which doesn't have any national carbon goals to speak of.
Yeah.
But the provinces of Canada have got their own.
Well, that's the message I got out of this, is the national governments aren't doing what these people want, so they're doing it on a local level.
They're doing it and Vermont is a perfectly good example of that. Yeah. Vermont and California and New York and a couple of other states are way out ahead of the curve.
And Quebec.
Yes,
and
exactly.
British Columbia.
Exactly.
And they're getting the job done.
They're getting the job done in many places. So this is an interesting thing. When the countries fail, the regions come in, and of course that could happen in places like India, perhaps too. I don't know, but should we move on from that?
Yeah, I think so.
Renews tells us wind power has generated 33% of Scotland's electricity needs in June, according to analysis by the World Wildlife Fund Scotland. This represents an increase of 120% compared to June of 2014. WWF also found that homes fitted with solar PV panels typically produce sufficient energy to supply themselves in much of Scotland.
This is a pretty picture of Scotland.
That's a pretty picture of Scotland.
Let's see if I got any more here.
They are getting more than double what they had got only a year ago out of wind.
In Scotland?
In Scotland.
Well, they're on the ball here.
Yeah, but they've been very badly undercut by the UK
British
government. Yeah. And of course, the Scots are saying we're going to get 100% of our power from renewables by 2020, and the English are saying, yeah, we're going to. The UK is really leading. Sorry, UK. Scotland is really leading. England is at about 9%. And Scotland is at about 45%.
Yeah, Scotland's all over, doing this all over the place. Well, they do have some pretty good locations for wind.
Scotland does. Yeah. England does too.
I guess they do.
The London array that we were just talking about is clearly one of them. But the cheapest power source they've got is onshore wind. And they're cutting back. The Scots, who have a lot of experience with onshore wind, want to put up onshore wind. The English, who have far less experience, want to restrict it. Yeah. And of course, since England has got the majority of the people,
it's all politics.
It's all politics. Yeah. But on the other hand, they also want to build new nuclear power plants at a cost of, Hinkley C, $40 billion.
It ain't going to happen.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's
too expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving right
along.
We're moving fast today.
And we're going to the Barry Montpelier Times Argus. Can you imagine that?
This is an interesting article. I mean, it's an editorial article, and it's interesting.
When Vermont became the first state to ban hydraulic fracturing for natural gas in 2012, Governor Peter Shumlin said the ban was, quote, in keeping with our environmental ethic and our protection of our natural resources, end quote. But now, the state seems likely to use fracked gas from Canada.
I don't think that's even accurate. I mean, there's some accuracy to it, I'm sure, but most of our energy in Vermont comes from Hydro-Quebec.
Well, what they're talking about, though, is new gas lines coming in that will extend the natural gas in the state of Vermont, and now it happens that fracked gas is a larger and larger portion of the gas that comes in, not just to Vermont, but all over the country.
Well, they make a statement here that I don't think is correct. It says Vermont takes about a third of its power from the huge dams on the rivers of northern Quebec, and I think we get much more than that.
I don't know. The SPEED program actually put an amount of power onto the grid in Vermont equaling about half of what we used to get from Vermont Yankee, which is about a sixth of the power. I'm saying it used to be a third from Vermont Yankee, and now a sixth of our power is coming from those, you know, biodigesters and hydraulic systems and wind turbines and so forth that were just in
SPEED.
SPEED.
Sixth of Vermont's power
Is coming from the SPEED program, which just got ended and upgraded to the
They
reset.
called it a new name, but it's
Reset.
Yeah.
I hate the name, but that is a program which is between the program that supports things like the net metering that supports rooftop solar and so forth, and utility-owned systems. The utility-owned systems are not permitted to be part of the SPEED program, or were not, and the net metering was a different program.
So this is aimed at individuals.
The SPEED program was aimed at individuals and
small
companies, cooperatives, businesses, churches, anybody who wanted to get involved. And some of the more significant plants that were part of that program are on farms with anaerobic digesters, and of course,
cow power.
Cow power, exactly. And the Vermont is way ahead of the rest of the country when it comes to anaerobic digesters. Almost all the rest of the country. We had 16 of them when California got its first one, and they are significant. You know, you put enough of those things up, and you've got a significant amount of your power coming from anaerobic digesters, which are technically biomass.
Sure they are. Absolutely.
So when you start talking about biomass, you have to be very careful to talk about what kind of biomass you're talking about, because if you're talking about wood biomass that comes from the forest, you're talking about forestry. If you're talking about anaerobic digesters, you're talking about using waste from agricultural
or restaurants.
Or restaurants, or food processing systems, or municipal waste. So it would be interesting to know. I don't know how much of our power we could get from that combination, but I would imagine that it would be fairly substantial. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture did a thing about a year ago saying, well, we've got about 300 of these plants in the United States now, at that time. We could use 11,000 of them. So this is an area in which small companies that have no experience with or very little experience with the American marketplace are able to bring products to market that have a big demand.
We talked about 2 weeks ago about San Antonio.
Yes.
And the interesting thing I thought about it was that the funding source, which was the state, put words in there that the panels had to be built in San Antonio.
Yes.
Hey, why not? You know,
well, they want to support local jobs.
Absolutely, it's a good idea.
And of course, when you think about it, when we are buying power from Quebec, and it's not that I have anything against the people in Quebec. Thank you very much, people of Quebec, for supplying us with this power. But when we buy power from Quebec, it means that we are taking money that's in our economy and we are shipping it to their economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is means that we have to bring money into our economy from elsewhere in order to support that.
It's still a foreign country.
It's still a foreign country. Isn't New Hampshire a foreign country?
Well, I think it's more of a foreign country than Quebec.
In some ways it is.
In some ways.
I used to live in New Hampshire. I love New Hampshire. I've always liked New Hampshire.
Now, they had a statement here that I don't quite understand. Levine's group has also raised concerns about the greenhouse gas emissions of large hydropower plants like those operated by Hydro-Quebec.
Well,
I know when they built them.
When you build them, you have huge greenhouse gas emissions because you're using concrete. Once the concrete's in place, I don't think you've got a lot of greenhouse gas. Although the Canadian federal government did a study on avian deaths, and they found that their hydro dams were killing 10 times as many birds as their wind.
Yeah, we've talked
turbines.
about that.
Although, in fairness, I have to point out, they're getting 100 times as much power from their hydro dams. But that means that their hydro dams on a per power basis would kill about 10% of the birds of wind power, which in turn kills about 3% of the birds that coal or oil or gas kill.
So coal, oil, and gas kill even more.
They're the real culprits. They are the real culprits. And that's the reason why the Audubon Society of Massachusetts supported Cape Wind, because Cape Wind, if people are going to use that power, as long as people are going to use that power, Cape Wind was saving the lives of birds. If you really want to save the lives of birds, don't use power.
Well, one thing I think we've talked about it here, flocks of birds tend to avoid places like turbines.
They do.
They're smart enough. They see these things or hear them or whatever it is. And it's, no, I don't want to be over there.
There's plenty of, and the other one too, Crystal River, Florida. It's on the west coast of Florida. It's a big power plant. It has, I think, 6 large coal-burning facilities, generators, each of which is about 2/3 the size of Vermont Yankee in terms of its output, plus 1 nuclear plant, which has since closed down. But there was an inventory of dead birds at that plant, and the inventory, they were actually able to count 3,000 of them. And they estimated that there was another 2,000, and that inventory was of birds killed in a single 48-hour period.
Wow.
Migration period, but you know, these big cooling towers that were at that time unlighted, I would guess. That's the only explanation I can think of. But the big cooling towers, big buildings, big smokestacks, big you name it, are all things that migrating birds can fly into.
Well, you don't hear much about all of the birds that are killed flying into large buildings in New York. It's a significant number.
Yeah, and the ones that don't get killed are pigeons. Lots and lots of pigeons. We can rest assured that even though if we don't do something about climate change, it could kill off half the bird species in North America, some birds will do well, and pigeons are among them. I always liked pigeons. Okay.
Okay, now we're back to New York.
We're back to New York. New York Governor Cuomo announced the state's solar power increased by more than 300% from 2011 to 2014, double the U.S. growth rate. Over 310 megawatts of solar panels have been installed by the end of the year, enough to power more than 51,000 homes. Over 304 megawatts more is under contract as of May 2015.
And in New York, that's all pretty much local scale. It's not utility scale solar.
Well, they're growing a lot of stuff in as many ways as they possibly can.
This is an interesting statement here. Solar capacity has tripled, quadrupled, or quintupled in every region of New York State except for Long Island. But what they don't say there
was a lot
Long Island started it.
Yes.
The eastern end of Long Island's got a lot of wealth. And these guys put up solar. They were putting up solar 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to see how that would happen.
But this is about newly installed capacity.
Right.
And they're growing fast.
That's right. And you know, the Solar Energy Society in New York State has decided that Green Energy Times, for which I write, is their official publication.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't even distributing really in any extent in New York State at the time that they decided that, but it is now.
If you look at this picture, I don't believe it's a composite, but the person who took that picture had to have done a lot of research. This isn't water, it's solar panels. And this is a coal-burning plant, and it's right next to this bridge. That's the 59th Street Bridge.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. That is neat. 59th Street Bridge.
Wasn't there a song about that? I think there was, but I can't remember it.
There was a song that had a name like that.
Yeah.
It might have been 59th Street Bridge. Is that the one that had the word slow down, you move too fast?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I really don't
Gotta
remember.
make the morning last. Feeling groovy. That's what it was.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Clean Technica told us the biggest highlight in the U.S. electricity generation capacity market is that 74% of new U.S. capacity added in the months January through May of 2015 came from wind and solar. Renewables overall accounted for 75% of the new capacity. Wind and solar now make up 7.6% of U.S. total capacity.
So what we're really talking about here is all the new construction is overwhelmingly renewable.
Yes.
And there's a nice graph there that shows you wind is way on top, solar.
Yep.
Natural gas is below the three of them.
Yep.
Utility scale solar, and this is nationwide.
Yes.
And then all of the others are almost tiny. Geothermal, water, biomass, nuclear, coal. Nuclear 0, coal 0, waste heat 0, oil 0, other 0.
Yeah.
That's this present year.
Yes.
That's, I guess, this May, January to May.
Yeah, although we are expecting that possibly there will be one nuclear plant come online this year.
Oh, yeah?
I forget which one it is, but, you know, and that will change things in a respect. And the nuclear has been growing from time to time as nuclear power became, as nuclear plants uprated and started producing more power than they were originally intended to. Okay.
Moving along.
Clean Technica also told us a bipartisan group of mayors from over 250 cities is taking an important stand against climate change denialism, calling for swift implementation of climate education in high schools nationwide. This happened at a conference of at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and that conference is open for cities with populations greater than 30,000. And again, what it shows is that if you're looking at the national level, you have conservative Republicans who are climate deniers, and if you're looking at the local level, a lot of the conservative and Republican politicians at the local level are not in that camp.
Well, they're starting to realize it benefits them.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, wait a second, you know. We should be supporting a little bit more of this.
Well, you know, there's another thing too, and that is that, for example, there are places where valuable pieces of property are unsaleable because the insurance companies won't insure them. And there are places where banks are facing losses because properties that they have on the books having mortgages cannot be sold.
Like they're on a shorefront and stuff like that?
No, because the insurance companies won't fund them because they're in flood zones.
No, okay.
You see?
Yeah, flood zones.
And so this, in some places, is starting to have an effect where people in the local Chamber of Commerce, which traditionally has been very conservative about money and financial matters, are starting to say, well, wait a minute. Maybe this is a real problem. If the bank says it's a real problem, if the insurance company says it's a real problem, maybe it's a real problem.
Maybe it is.
And then in addition to that, you've got the very simple problem that all of a sudden, and we'll have this in I guess it's not the next item, but the one after, the cost of renewable power is very, very low compared to the cost of traditional power. Mm-hmm. And by having greater amounts of renewable power on the grid, you get better grid security in terms of production. I mean, Germany went from 5% renewable resources to 35% renewable resources, and in a very short period of time. In a very short period of time. But in the course of doing that, they took the grid, which had been the most reliable in Europe, with 15 minutes of loss per customer per year, and taken it to a point where it was 10 minutes of loss per customer per year, grid out for 10 minutes a year.
So it's improved.
It's improved. Yeah. Renewable power has improved things. And
isn't that the opposite of what we've been hearing?
It's the opposite of what we've been told to expect by people who make money using the old, coal, nuclear, and gas techniques. And when you look at the system and you consider distributed power is distributed, not just distributed geographically. It's distributed in terms of technology. So if the wind isn't blowing, you can bet that during the daytime the sun will be shining, and you can have that. You can have that biomass generator, the anaerobic digester, the hydraulic run of the river system, the geothermal system, the whatever you've got going. Those systems will keep going, and the whole deal when you've got thermal power, the traditional huge power plants, you had to have redundancy, because when a plant went down, you had to have power there.
So you're paying to keep these plants spinning, even though you weren't using the power.
That's right. Now, what you do is you have plants that you don't have to pay them to keep them spinning. The wind turns the turbine, and if the guy who owns the turbine isn't selling you the power, he's grumbling because he'd much rather make money. But it's not like somebody has to pay to have that wind turbine turn.
No.
So, okay. I think
storage technology is changing that too.
Oh yeah. Oh, and
every time we turn around,
technologies.
A new way of storing.
There are so many technologies that are coming online, and the result of that is that we can have things that are extremely anyway. Let's go to the next one.
A little horror show here.
State Journal tells us, as U.S. coal production has seen gradual decline in the last few years, mountaintop removal mines have been hardest hit, according to a report from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Total U.S. coal production has decreased about 15%, actually more than that. But mountaintop removal mining saw a 62% drop, and if you want to know why, just look at that.
It's too bad I can't get this up on the screen like we usually do, because I'm looking at the monitor there, and this is half the size of the screen.
Yeah.
This is a horrible picture.
This is a picture of what had been a mountaintop. You can see the trees up here. There had been a mountaintop there.
One peak, one ridge.
But what happened? Well, somebody came in and they found coal, and they just removed the mountaintop in order to get at the coal. Now this puts a kind of a new meaning on this business of habitat destruction due to wind turbines, doesn't it?
I would think. I mean, what you're not even seeing here, this is a road.
Yeah,
well, this road is going to go along probably a river.
Yeah.
And that river is probably going to go below that peak. And you're going to see all of this overburden dumped into that river.
Yep.
I have seen that a long, long time ago. I saw it. It was horrible then. It's getting worse now.
And they've got open pit mines in places that are bigger than the island of Manhattan. Some of these things are absolutely huge. Nothing,
some of them are very large.
Nothing you want to have around you lives in them.
Well, I don't mind them doing an open pit in the middle of the desert somewhere. But you're in the West Virginia hills, which are rather beautiful.
Yeah.
You come around a corner, you see something like this, you want to throw up.
Yes. And, again, compared to wind turbines, we're going to see habitat destruction because of climate change. And
well, this particular article shows how this is reducing. There's a graph here that shows the number of permits that's going down. The actual production has gone down seriously.
Yes.
This is West Virginia, the blue is Kentucky, and Virginia almost doesn't show. There's only a small part of Virginia where they do this stuff. You know, Western, Bristol, Virginia, Bristol, Tennessee, they're the same town.
But the oil production, coal production is going down because coal plants aren't buying as much coal as they used to because the plants are being closed.
It's economics again.
So you've got an entire industry which is in depression. You've got the oil industry in recession because electric vehicles are coming. You know, there are a variety of reasons why there are problems for all of these big companies that are among the biggest in the world. And here is the one coming up, which is their most serious problem so far. And that is this one from the Daily Democrat.
Here we go.
Oh boy. In Nevada, NV Energy has lined up what may be the cheapest electricity in the United States, and it comes from, guess what, gang, a solar farm. The Berkshire Hathaway company agreed to pay 3.87 cents per kilowatt hour from a 100 megawatt first solar project. Includes subsidies, and it's close to the record of 5.85 cents per kilowatt hour set in January in Dubai. This is not just a one-shot deal. This is happening all over the world.
Oh yeah.
And
there's Buffett. He can't even believe it.
I'll bet that wasn't taken because of this. But you know, the subsidies for solar are substantial, and I've seen different figures for what they come to, and the figures range from 1.9 cents per kilowatt hour to 2.3 cents. They're all in the
Doesn't sound like a lot.
Not a lot of range, but it's when you add that on to 3.87 cents. Okay, you might be around 5.75 cents. You might be 6.2 cents. Whatever it is, it's pretty close to the 5.85 cent per kilowatt hour record set in Dubai, where there is no subsidy for solar. Now, the point of what I'm saying is that what this points to is the fact, the fact that solar power has achieved parity in the United States for utility grade. Now, we had guests last week, who are putting in solar capacity in Dummerston, and of course a couple of them are doing it in Brattleboro as well, and they are talking about in Vermont an ordinary individual can own a solar facility of his own, or it can be he can own it in a facility which is in a farm someplace.
It doesn't have to be on his property.
Doesn't have to be on his property. He doesn't have to own the property. If he's a renter, he can move his account from one part of Vermont to another. But the upshot of this is he is going to start, when he finances this thing, right from the get-go, no money down. Right from the get-go, lower costs, because his utility bill is replaced by a slightly lower or equal amount of money going to financing the solar, which in 8 or 10 or 12 years is going to be reduced to just a connect fee.
So the utility company's doing this. They're the ones building it.
The utility company is behind this. Green Mountain Power
is very interesting.
Behind it, but there's also financing organizations such as NeighborWorks of Western Vermont and the
Vermont State Employees Credit Union.
Yeah. VSECU, they're helping with this, and they're trying to make it happen. So basically what's happened is we in Vermont, from the point of view of the homeowner, achieved parity a couple of years ago. But now we're seeing parity at utility scale, where you're talking about not parity of retail versus wholesale, where as a homeowner, if we can get the power in a way which is we're paying ourselves wholesale to do it, we're in pretty good shape. Now it's wholesale versus wholesale. So that is interesting. Now,
progress, that's what it's
progress, it is indeed. Business Recorder gives us our last item, which is the White House has taken steps to boost installation of solar power and other renewable energy for federally subsidized housing. The new goal is to install 300 megawatts of solar and other renewable energy at in affordable housing by 2020, tripling a goal set in 2013, which has already been surpassed. The goal set in 2013 for 2020 got surpassed in
already.
2 years instead of 7.
Well, this article or this particular program seems to be connected to buying houses.
Okay.
Okay. It doesn't seem to be connected with public housing.
Okay.
And there's some pictures of public housing there. And the one on the left is Ledgewood Heights. You know, right, this one here.
Okay.
And that
sounds like is that in New Jersey?
No, that's in Brattleboro.
Oh,
all of these are in Brattleboro.
This, of course. All right.
Yeah. LH. Oh, okay.
Ledgewood
is Heights. That's up by Price.
I know
Chopper.
where it is. Yeah, up by Price.
But the interesting thing, you see that left end there, the steep sloped roof. They're almost all pointing west. They're going to be a perfect location for solar.
Okay, west?
They're pointing at the sun.
South.
South. I'm sorry, yeah. Okay. They're pointing south.
Yeah. They're almost all pointing south, which means you can put solar panels up there. And they get a lot of sun.
Yeah, so I would not be surprised to see some solar going up there in the not too distant future.
Well, it makes sense. What else is up there?
This is Moore Court by Green Street.
Okay.
And this is West Brattleboro. This is Garfield Drive.
Okay.
So these are all our local housing authority properties.
I used to live near a town called Ledgewood in New Jersey. When I hear Ledgewood, I just automatically, my mind goes to New Jersey.
I think this is the last one we got here.
It is the last one, which is okay because we are coming to the end of our show. We've got a couple of minutes left. If you've got something important to say, we can talk about it. If not, we could probably just say goodbye to everybody.
I could probably find something else up here in the way of pictures to
give
show.
Our apologies for
I hadn't planned on it.
A somewhat crude presentation, but that's okay.
Okay, let's say goodbye.
Goodbye. You're supposed to say goodbye, Tom.
Goodbye.
It makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.